November 1968. The U.S. secretly launches its largest bombing campaign yet, dropping over 3 million tons of explosives on a neutral country. The orders were signed in violation of global treaties, and the campaign was run by two rival commands. They flood the night with aircraft, increasing sorties threefold in a single month, all to strangle supply lines that no one was supposed to admit existed. But behind the official story of Operation Commando Hunt is a covert battlefield, whose real consequences and ultimate purpose few understand. So why did Washington risk everything for this shadow war? Orders for Operation Commando Hunt were signed under the highest secrecy on November 15, 1968. The campaign's official objective was clear: sever the Ho Chi Minh Trail and halt the flow of North Vietnamese troops and supplies into South Vietnam. But the battlefield lay in Laos, a country declared neutral by the 1962 Geneva Accords. Every mission risked international scandal and direct violation of treaty law. U.S. leaders insisted on plausible deniability, masking the operation behind code names and redacted reports. Strike logs omitted locations, and after-action summaries buried the true targets under layers of euphemism. The magnitude of the effort was staggering. Over 3 million tons of bombs would fall on Laos before the campaign ended in March 1972. This was more than the Allies dropped on Germany and Japan combined during World War II. The air war's scale dwarfed any previous covert action, yet the American public, Congress, and most of the world remained in the dark. Secrecy shaped every decision. The U.S. 7th Air Force and Navy Task Force 77 coordinated attacks from Thailand and carriers in the Gulf of Tonkin, but their directives passed through compartmentalized channels. Even senior commanders often lacked the full picture. Official records referred to Steel Tiger and Tiger Hound instead of Laos. Air crews received maps with blanked-out borders and were briefed to avoid rescue if shot down to prevent exposure. The rationale for such extreme measures lay in the strategic importance of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. North Vietnamese convoys, hidden by jungle canopy and shielded by diplomatic fiction, supplied entire divisions in the south. Washington gambled that air power could choke this lifeline without triggering a wider war. The campaign's covert mandate demanded both overwhelming force and absolute silence. Over the next 40 months, the shadow war would escalate into a contest of technology, adaptation, and political risk, leaving a legacy of destruction that would outlast the conflict itself. Responsibility for the air campaign rested on two command structures, each wielding distinct capabilities and resources. The U.S. 7th Air Force, operating from bases in Thailand, directed land-based tactical air operations. Under their command, F-4 Phantoms and F-105 Thunder Chiefs launched from Ubon, Korat, and other Thai airfields, targeting the labyrinth of trails threading through southern Laos. These land-based units specialized in high-tempo, round-the-clock missions, shifting from daylight bombing to increasingly sophisticated night attacks as North Vietnamese convoys adapted their movements. Offshore, the U.S. Navy's Task Force 77 maintained a parallel but complementary presence. Its carriers, stationed in the Gulf of Tonkin, launched 6 Intruders and 7 Corsair IIs, aircraft designed for all-weather and night operations. Carrier-based squadrons focused on trail choke points and defended river crossings, often flying in coordination with Air Force assets, but relying on their own command and control protocols. This dual service approach allowed for continuous pressure on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, with sorties surging from 4,700 in October 1968 to 12,800. The following month, The sudden escalation reflected both the end of Rolling Thunder and the urgent need to exploit every available aircraft for interdiction. Coordination between these commands demanded a careful balance. While the 7th Air Force managed the broader campaign's tactical planning and prioritized targets based on intelligence and sensor data, Task Force 77 retained autonomy over its carrier groups and strike packages. Joint planning cells worked to deconflict airspace, allocate targets, and synchronize timing, but compartmentalization remained the rule. Orders flowed through secure, need-to-know channels, and even senior officers often saw only fragments of the overall plan. The result was an unprecedented scale of aerial warfare, with hundreds of sorties launched daily from both land and sea. Command staffs faced relentless pressure to generate missions, track results, and adapt to shifting enemy tactics. The organizational machinery behind Commando Hunt reflected the sheer complexity of fighting a secret war across a neutral country, where every mission required both overwhelming force and careful concealment. As the campaign unfolded, this joint command framework would become the backbone for new technological experiments, laying the groundwork for a war fought as much by sensors and computers as by pilots and bombs. The heart of the technological campaign against the Ho Chi Minh Trail lay in an invisible network scattered across the Laotian jungle. U.S. engineers developed a family of sensors designed to detect the faintest signs of movement, including vehicles and footsteps, even the low thrum of engines beneath dense canopy. The air-delivered seismic intrusion detector, called ADSID, picked up ground vibrations from trucks or marching columns. Its cousin, the ACUSID, listened for sound signatures. In C mode, it could sense a truck up to a kilometer away, and in I mode, it caught the shuffle of personnel within a 400-meter radius. Both models were small, battery-powered, and camouflaged to look like sticks, plants, or animal droppings. Once dropped, they could remain active for up to a month, sending out bursts of data whenever something moved nearby. Deployment was a mission of precision and risk. Specially modified Neptune OP-2E aircraft from Navy Squadron 5067 flew low and slow, braving anti-aircraft fire to scatter sensors over suspected choke points. Later, F-4 Phantoms and other tactical jets took over the job, releasing pods that burst open mid-air, dispersing sensors in clusters across branching trails and river crossings. Placement strategy focused on known supply arteries and likely bypass routes, with fields shifting each season to match changes in enemy traffic. Maps from after-action reports show overlapping sensor grids fanning out from key mountain passes and valleys, designed to catch convoys as they funneled south. Each sensor relayed its signal skyward via UHF or VHF radio, hoping to reach an orbiting relay aircraft. The EC-121R Batcat and later QU-22B Pave Eagle planes circled above, acting as mobile antennas to collect the sensor data and beam it to ground stations in Thailand. The physical footprint of this network was vast, but almost invisible. Thousands of sensors scattered across hundreds of miles, each one a silent sentinel, waiting for a telltale vibration or sound. This web of electronic eyes became the first line of detection in a war where seeing the enemy was nearly impossible. The next challenge lay in making sense of the torrent of signals pouring in from the jungle. Raw signals from the jungle sensors never traveled straight to the bombers. Every vibration, every faint engine hum first bounced skyward to a relay aircraft, most often the EC-121R call sign, Batcat. These modified constellations flew slow, silent orbits over Laos, gathering streams of UHF and VHF transmissions from thousands of hidden sensors below. Each Batcat carried a crew of specialists, their consoles flickering with coded bursts, blips and pings that might mean trucks, footsteps, or just another monsoon downpour. The relay aircraft then beamed this data across hundreds of miles to a nondescript building at Nakhon Phanom, Thailand. Inside, the Infiltration Surveillance Center, called ISC and Task Force Alpha, became the nerve center of the electronic war. Here, analysts faced a daily flood of information. The IBM system, 360 Model 65 mainframe, one of the era's most powerful computers, churned through signal after signal. It sorted out patterns, flagged anomalies, and tried to distinguish enemy convoys from water buffalo or shifting branches. Analysts worked in shifts, their eyes fixed on printouts and green-tinted displays, sifting out false alarms and confirming likely targets. Once a sensor field lit up with movement, the computer would triangulate the coordinates, cross-check with known traffic patterns, and generate a strike recommendation, sometimes in under 5 minutes. This real-time relay to computer chain was designed for speed and secrecy. The ISC's workflow allowed 7th Air Force and Task Force 77 to coordinate attacks without ever setting foot in Laos. Strike coordinates, once confirmed, traveled by secure line to airborne command posts or directly to forward air controllers circling above the jungle. The process was relentless. Analysts triaged thousands of sensor hits each night, knowing a single missed signal might mean a lost convoy, or worse, a wasted bomb run. The scale of the operation and its expense was staggering. Annual costs topped $1 billion, with much of the budget devoted to keeping the ISC's computers running and the Batcat fleet in the air. For the U.S. command, this was the price of a technological edge, a vast, invisible machine sifting the chaos of war into a steady stream of targets, and hoping that each data point meant one less truck on the trail. Night belonged to the gunships. As North Vietnamese convoys pressed south under the jungle canopy, AC-130, Spectre crews took to the sky, orbiting in darkness above the Ho Chi Minh Trail. These aircraft were built for a single purpose: to hunt and destroy trucks moving under cover of night. Early models bristled with 20mm Vulcan cannons and 40mm Bofors guns, but by 1969 the arsenal included a 105mm howitzer, the largest gun ever mounted on a combat plane. Cluster munitions joined the inventory, designed to saturate a stretch of road with hundreds of bomblets in seconds. Each sortie was a complex ballet, with pilots, navigators, fire control officers, and sensor operators working in tight coordination. Infrared and low-light television sensors scanned the darkness for engine heat or the faint glimmer of headlights. The Black Crow system could even pick up the spark of an unshielded ignition coil, guiding the gunship to its prey through a wall of foliage. Weather became another weapon. In 1968, the United States launched Operation Popeye, seeding clouds to lengthen the monsoon and turn trails into mud. The aim was simple: slow the trucks, force them into bottlenecks, and make them easier targets for the gunships circling above. Crew logs from the 16th Special Operations Squadron tell the story in terse, clipped entries, coordinates, ordnance counts, and confirmed hits. On the night of November 18, 1968, a sensor field detected a convoy threading through a key pass. Within minutes, the AC-130 was vectored in. The crew unleashed a barrage, thousands of 20mm rounds, dozens of 40mm shells, and when the range was right, a single 105mm shot that set off a chain of secondary explosions. The strike report credited the mission with destroying 8 trucks and damaging several more, all in a span of less than 20 minutes. Each successful attack fueled the belief that technology could outpace adaptation. The gunships prowled the night, guided by invisible signals and the relentless logic of interdiction. Yet for every convoy shattered on the trail, questions lingered about what actually slipped through and whether even the most advanced weapons could truly stem the flow. The debate over effectiveness would soon become as fierce as the battles in the dark. North Vietnamese planners refused to let air power dictate the outcome. As bombs rained down on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, engineers and labor battalions pushed the network outward, transforming what had once been a narrow corridor into a sprawling web nearly 90 miles wide by 1971. New bypasses threaded through the jungle, each designed to absorb the shock of daily bombardment. Convoys moved at night, headlights blacked out, trucks spaced wide to avoid cluster munitions. But the most dramatic change came from below. Anti-aircraft artillery, no longer limited to small-caliber guns, now bristled along the main routes. Radar-guided 85mm and 100mm cannons appeared in force, each one tracked to precise coordinates in U.S. after-action reports. Aircrews who once flew with near impunity now faced dense flak belts and radar-directed fire. On March 22, 1971, 3 carrier-based aircraft vanished in a single night, lost to a coordinated anti-aircraft ambush. The cost of each mission rose sharply, planes shot down, crews missing, and the trail itself expanding faster than bombs could close it. For every new tactic, the defenders answered with thicker camouflage, decoys, and a wall of steel. The air war's technological edge began to dull against an enemy learning, adapting, and fighting back with everything at hand. Truck kill counts became the currency of progress inside the Air War's control rooms. 7th Air Force intelligence memoranda circulated through secure channels credited Commando Hunt with destroying thousands of North Vietnamese vehicles each season. 7,322 trucks in the first campaign alone, and 51,000 by war's end. A C-130 gunships, in particular, drew praise for their nightly tallies, with some reports attributing more than 7,000 kills to a single squadron. Yet even as the numbers piled up, doubts multiplied. Internal reviews questioned how the Air Force could claim more trucks destroyed in a year than enemy inventories could possibly supply. CIA estimates put the entire North Vietnamese truck fleet at just 6,000 vehicles. Analysts in Nakhon Phanom began recalculating, lowering kill claims for Commando Hunt 5 from over 16,000 to 11,000 after cross-checking with reconnaissance and captured enemy logs. Post-war studies revealed even starker gaps. RAND and Department of Defense assessments, paired with captured People's Army of Vietnam records, showed that the trail never stopped functioning. North Vietnamese supply deliveries actually increased, with net losses dropping below 3% in some years. The official metrics, once central to the campaign's narrative, now stand as evidence of a deeper disconnect between what the war room wanted to see and what the battlefield truly delivered. Villages like Ban Xieng Lom became silent witnesses to the true cost of Commando Hunt. As bombs fell, families fled their homes, fields were abandoned, and entire communities scattered across the countryside. The end of the air campaign did not bring peace. Instead, it left behind a deadly inheritance, millions of unexploded cluster bomblets hidden in the soil. Nearly 30% of all ordnance dropped on Laos failed to detonate, according to United Nations and non-governmental organization estimates. Today, Laos remains the most heavily bombed country per capita in the world, and the danger is not just history. Children stumble on metal spheres and rice paddies, farmers lose limbs while clearing brush. Organizations like UXO Lao and MAG work year after year, mapping contaminated land, removing bombs by hand, and recording each new accident. Clearance teams log thousands of hazardous sites, yet the work is far from finished. For many Lao families, the war's aftermath is measured not in decades, but in daily risks that linger long after the last sortie. Unexploded ordnance from this campaign still contaminates Laos, injuring civilians every year. Decades later, the region's landscape and its people bear the scars of decisions made in secrecy, as covert operations continue to shape conflicts worldwide. The true cost of remote warfare is measured not just in military outcomes, but in lives forever altered. What lessons will we choose to remember? Share your thoughts below.